But damn, Caitlin Clark tried her best to single-handedly save Stephanie White's sorry A. I'm just keeping it real. Boy, I mean, just go on. Caitlin Clark knocked down two threes. Stephanie White benched her. She benched her, and guess what? The Washington Mystics were off to the races. Off to the races. By the way, we'd love to see some pick and roll. Doesn't matter now. Leah Boston's hurt. She's out. For how long, we don't know. And
The paperwork was finished before the players even left the locker room. Stephanie White's time is up. Following a defensive clinic by the Washington Mystics that left the Indiana Fever completely lost, the current experiment has officially collapsed. No one anticipated a resignation to occur this quickly, but when your star player puts up 32 points and you still lose because your defense is wide open, there is nowhere left to hide. The internal tension reached a breaking point that even deep three-pointers couldn't fix. This wasn't merely a loss on the scoreboard. It was the final blow for a coaching era that never truly grasped how to use the weapon they had in Caitlin Clark. The entire league is in absolute shock right now.
And 2024 Caitlin Clark absolutely still exists. We saw it tonight. It was fun. She tried to pull this team up after it was getting dominated by the Mystics. Second, third quarter, domination by the Mystics. Stephanie White had no answers. Look at this. Second quarter. Look at this. 28-21 is where we was at headed into the second. 20-9 in the second quarter.
It was supposed to be the night.
The Fever were supposed to defend their home court, but the night turned into a total disaster instead. You are watching the unfiltered truth of sports, where we don't hold back. The Mystics walked into Indiana and played like they owned the arena, revealing every single mistake in Stephanie White's defensive strategy. We are looking at a squad that seemed entirely directionless during the second and third quarters, while their coach stood on the sidelines with no solutions. Caitlin Clark gave everything she had to single-handedly rescue White's job tonight, but even a once-in-a-generation talent has her breaking point when the surrounding system is fundamentally flawed. The news is out, and the consequences for this franchise will be massive.
Oh, and she missed some key easy layups in this game. Guys, this Stephanie White experiment, do not let anybody blow smoke up your ass. It's not going to work. And I saw somebody say, you know, last year's playoff run might have been actually long-term not so great. Because guess what? Guess who started sniffing her own farts? Guess who subscribed to the
most confusing moment of the night happened exactly when Caitlin Clark started to catch fire. She hit two huge three-pointers back-to-back. The fans were going wild, and Indiana finally had the momentum on their side. Then, in a decision that left every reporter in the arena stunned, Stephanie White benched her. She took her star player off the court right in the middle of a hot streak. As expected, the Washington Mystics grabbed that chance and took off. They dominated the moment Clark sat down. You truly cannot make this up. It was a failure of coaching at the highest level, showing a total lack of awareness that led to this unavoidable split.
Might have been actually long-term not so great. Because guess what? Guess who started sniffing her own farts? Guess who subscribed to the, oh, we're better off without Caitlin Clark. Kelsey Mitchell can single-handedly carry us. No. You've got to have... Caitlin Clark had to go berserk tonight for them to even be competitive at the end of this game. She had to go berserk. She said, to hell with the coaching.
Washington played with a level of physical toughness that the Fever just couldn't meet, highlighting a major hole in the current roster. There is a noticeable lack of size and interior strength right now, and the Mystics took advantage of that every time they drove to the basket. The duo of Shakira Austin and Aaliyah Edwards was completely dominant in the paint. They were aggressive and unstoppable while Indiana was just trying to find their footing. Washington was systematically breaking them down inside. It was clear from the start that the Fever were physically outmatched, and the coaches had no strategy to fix that size gap. It was a very long night for anyone in a Fever uniform.
She said, to hell with the coaching. I'm going to take over this game myself. And by the way, the lack of pick and roll is still just egregious. It's egregious. Oh, and on top of everything else, you've played 2 home games and you've lost them both. Home games don't grow on trees, folks. Caitlin Clark just put on one of the greatest fourth quarter performances in WNBA history to carry her team to overtime.
To make matters even worse, injuries hit at the most unfortunate time. Aaliyah Boston went down, and the sudden quiet in the building was chilling. We aren't sure how long she will be sidelined, but her injury left a huge gap in the middle that the Mystics were happy to exploit. Without Boston there, the Fever's defense fell apart entirely. It was like watching a house of cards collapse in slow motion. The lack of depth on this roster is alarming, and when your main post player is hurt, you expect a coach to change the plan. Instead, we saw the same failed plays that have hurt this team all year. It was the beginning of the end for this leadership. You have lost them both.
Home games don't grow on trees, folks. Caitlin Clark just put on one of the greatest fourth quarter performances in WNBA history to carry her team to overtime. She was 5 of 7 from three-point range for 17 points in 9 minutes. Berserk. By the way, Stephanie White still benched her a couple of times at some very strange moments. Very strange moments. I got to tell you.
The second quarter was a complete wreck that basically settled the game before the half. The Fever were outscored 20-9 in a 10-minute span that felt like it would never end. Stephanie White looked like she had no answers while the Mystics shredded her defensive plans. This wasn't just about missing shots. It was a total failure to follow basic basketball logic. The Mystics were scoring at will while Indiana looked like they had never practiced together before. By halftime, the score told the story of 2 teams moving in opposite directions. One was led by a clear strategy, and the other was just praying that Caitlin Clark would save them. No more logo threes tonight, everyone.
It was the most excited I have been since 2024 for one of these games. One of these games. Even my guy Whitlock had to say, oh, the thrill's back. It was back. Look at that pass. I mean, Caitlin with that pass to Kelsey, holy smokes. I mean, it was fire. Here we go again. Right here. Let's go. Down the court. I mean.
In the third quarter, the pressure continued as Washington took the frame 26-21. Every time Indiana tried to start a comeback, the Mystics had a response ready. The pairing of Stephanie Dolson and Aaliyah Edwards was playing at an elite level. Dolson ended the night with 30 points, while Edwards grabbed 25 points and 13 rebounds. People love to discuss other rookies, but Edwards is proving to be exactly the player everyone claims others are. She was a force on the boards and shot 11 for 14. She acted as the anchor that kept the Fever from gaining any real ground until the very end of the game. So much for the Stephanie White supporters.
This is not it. You know, I did see somebody say something. Stephanie White may be a great coach. She may not be a great coach for Caitlin Clark. I mean, that world could actually exist. It was like we got to the fourth quarter and it was like Christy Sides was on the side again. Just Christy Sides was just like, you go do your thing.
Then the fourth quarter arrived, and we finally saw the Caitlin Clark the world fell in love with back in Iowa. She went completely nuclear. It was one of the most incredible fourth-quarter displays in WNBA history, and she nearly pulled off a miracle. Clark carried the entire team and forced the game into overtime. She hit 5 of 7 three-pointers in those final 9 minutes, scoring 17 points in that short window alone. It was pure, dominant basketball. She decided to ignore the coaching and the broken plays to take the game over herself. It was the most vocal the fans have been all year, but even that wasn't enough. Clark's final stats looked like a video game. She ended with 32 points, 8 assists, and 4 rebounds. She finally found her long-range touch, making 7 of 17 from deep. We saw the famous logo threes, the fast break points, and the high-level passing that makes her a rare talent. Even the toughest critics had to admit the spark was back. She was hitting shots from the parking lot and finding teammates with sharp passes that should have been easy points, but the fact that she had to play this hard just to keep it close says everything about the roster and the coaching. Kelsey Mitchell chipped in 24 points, but when overtime started, she vanished. She missed vital layups and looked shaky when the pressure hit its peak. This is the issue when players start to believe their own press. There is a narrative that the team might be better off without Clark, or that veterans can carry the load alone. Tonight proved that idea is a total joke. Without Clark's historic run in the fourth, this game would have been a 30-point blowout. The egos in that locker room need a reality check, starting with who the actual engine is. The lack of a simple pick and roll in this offense is inexcusable. We are watching one of the greatest screen and roll players ever, yet the staff refuses to use her right. It is like owning a Ferrari and never shifting out of second gear. Stephanie White might be a fine coach elsewhere, but she is the wrong fit for Caitlin Clark. Some leaders just aren't meant for certain talents. Last year's success might have been a curse because it gave the team a false sense of security. They thought they were title contenders when they weren't. Losing 2 home games straight is unacceptable for a team with this much attention. Home wins are precious, and you have to protect your court to be respected. The Mystics coach didn't just win, he outclassed White in the second and third quarters. He had his squad ready for everything Indiana tried, while the Fever looked like they were winging it. It was like a chess master facing a checkers player. The gap in strategy was so wide the game felt over long before the overtime buzzer. Rumors of the resignation started the second the game ended. The body language on the bench told a story words couldn't. White looked beaten, and the players looked annoyed by the lack of a plan. You cannot have a star like Clark and fail to set her up for success. When a coach benches a star during a hot streak, the trust is gone. Once that trust breaks, there is no fixing it. The front office had to act or risk losing the fans and the players entirely. The pressure was simply too high. Let's look at the defensive breakdown specifically, because that is where the loss happened. The Mystics were allowed to shoot high percentages and rule the paint without a fight. There was no rim protection, no rotation, and no talking on the perimeter. It looked like a practice drill for Washington for most of the game. If you can't stop the Mystics at home, who can you stop? The defensive identity is missing, and that is on the coaches. You can score all you want, but if you give up 30 points to a center, you lose. Caitlin Clark's night was a double-edged sword for Stephanie White. It kept the game tight, but it showed how the coach was holding them back. When Clark went off script in the fourth, the team was unstoppable. When they ran White's plays in the second, they only scored 9 points. The difference was too obvious to ignore. It felt like the old days on the sidelines again, with a style of play that just doesn't fit this roster. Social media has been brutal for White's remaining fans. People tried to act like this would work, but the proof is on the scoreboard. You can't ignore home losses and a lack of growth from the other players. The comments tonight will be hard to read for those still defending this leadership. Fans are done with excuses and watching a rare talent be wasted in a 1990s system. The world shifted tonight, and the Fever had to shift with it. It's a sad situation when your star player has to carry the coach just to help her keep her job. That is how much Clark saved her tonight. If she doesn't go on that run, White is fired immediately. By resigning, she leaves with some pride before the axe falls. This team needs a leader who understands how to build around a high IQ playmaker. They need someone comfortable in the spotlight who can manage the egos of a high-profile rebuild. The Mystics earned credit for their plan. They knew how to annoy Clark early with physical play, but once she adjusted, they had no answer. They were lucky the Fever's own coach helped them by benching Clark at the worst times. It's rare to see an opponent get a gift like that. Washington took advantage of every error and poor substitution. They played like veterans who knew how to break down a messy, young squad. Moving forward, the Fever have huge choices to make. With Boston's injury and a coaching search, the season is at a crossroads. Do they pick another defensive coach? Or do they hire someone who lets Caitlin Clark be the hero she was tonight? The fans have spoken. They want the fast, exciting basketball from the fourth quarter, not the struggle of the first three. The next hire defines the Clark era, and they can't fail again. The good news is we know the 2024 Caitlin Clark is still here. She hasn't lost her magic. Seeing her pull up from the logo was the highlight of the season. It reminded everyone why she is the biggest name in sports. She can change a game in seconds. If she gets a coach who believes in her and a defense that helps, the sky is the limit. But tonight showed how much work remains. The gap between a superstar and a title team is a canyon. You need a system, a culture, and a winning staff. The Mystics showed what a real unit looks like. They played for each other and didn't fold during Clark's run. That is where the Fever need to be, but it won't happen with the old structure. Stephanie White's exit ends a brief, confusing time marked by bad rotations and a lack of identity. The experiment is over, and while it ended in a resignation, it gives the team a fresh start. They can reset and find a leader who can handle the pressure of coaching a global icon. The whole world is watching Indiana, and they cannot afford another mistake. In the end, Clark's brilliance forced the change that had to happen. She proved she can beat a defense, but she shouldn't have to beat her own coach too. The thrill is back, and the future is bright, but only if the right pieces are finally put in place. Stay tuned as this story grows, because the fallout from tonight is only the beginning. The Fever are seeking a new path, and the world is waiting for the next act of the Caitlin Clark show.